Hi everyone, this is Sonu Satyadas. Today we are going to see what is web components and how we can build components using this JavaScript frameworks. So according to Mozilla Developer Networks, web component is a suite of different technologies that allow you to create reusable custom elements. So custom elements is something that you can use inside your HTML along with the built-in elements or built-in tags that can provide some functionality. Maybe you want to add some advertisements or image carousel or something like that. So if you want to create a widget or a component that you can reuse in multiple applications, in such cases we can build web components. So web components will help us to reuse the existing code in different applications. Uh, that means if you are building an application using vanilla JavaScript, or you are building an Angular application or a React application, you can use the same web component in all the applications. That means it is framework agnostic, means you don't need to go and create components specific to a particular framework. So that is the benefit of using web components. For building web components, we need to understand primarily four things. We can say they are the core technologies required for building the custom components or web components. So primarily a custom element. A custom element is a JavaScript API that allow you to define the elements and their behavior. So which means you will be creating a JavaScript class, and that class can define all the functionalities that you want to use as a web component. And using a custom element, you can use that class inside your HTML web pages. Another thing is a shadow DOM. So usually when we use the custom elements inside your web application, it sometimes may create a conflict with the other tag elements. Maybe sometimes you use some styles or some other scripts that may create a conflict with the other part of the application, other part of the DOM element. So in such cases, if you want to isolate or you want to create a encapsulation for your custom element, then we can create a shadow DOM. So it's possible for us to create web components without shadow DOM, but it's always better to create a shadow DOM and attach it to the real browser DOM to create this web component, so that you can isolate your component, the style, scripts, anything that you use inside your web component does not create a conflict with the other part of this application. Another technology that we typically use is HTML templates. So usually we can define the templates using a template tag inside your HTML page. You can also create slots for defining the segments. So you can create the views with the templates and define certain areas of the templates using the slots, which you can render inside your custom element. So when you define the custom elements, you can use the templates that you have defined inside your HTML page and render the dynamic content inside it. The benefit of using the template is it can be reused very easily. You don't need to go and type the complete HTML code inside the JavaScript, and you can also use the ES modules, which it helps you to import the JavaScript code inside your application. So if you want to import and export your application uh, components, means inside your application you want to import the code, you can use the ES module. So any specific JavaScript file you can import as a module. So while using the script tag, you can simply specify the type as module, which means you are going to include the JavaScript file as a module inside your application. Creating a custom element is very easy. The first of all, you need to go and create a class that is extending the HTML element base class. Then you can define your custom element functionalities inside the class. You can define the reactions, which means you can simply call as the methods that you can use for defining the code logic. The reaction methods, also called as lifecycle methods of the web components. And after you have defined the component, you can register that component using the custom elements dot define method. So in that method, you need to pass a name or custom element name that can be used for calling that custom element. So sometime you can say my hyphen counter or my hyphen advertisement, or maybe sample hyphen widget. Any name that you want, you can use. It's always preferred to use a hyphen in the tag, so that you can define your custom elements, and with a hyphen that will differentiate your custom element from the built-in elements of your HTML tags. So inside the define method, you will be specifying the name of this custom element, then the class that you defined, and optionally you can specify the name of the base class that your element is inheriting from. Suppose if you are creating a custom element from the HTML button element, then you can specify the button as the base for your component. It's also possible to define a shadow DOM. So yes, you can define your custom elements without using a shadow DOM, but it's preferred to use the shadow DOM if you want to encapsulate the functionality. Suppose if you want to encapsulate the styles and scripts inside a virtual DOM or a shadow DOM, you can use the shadow DOM functionality that can be defined using the element dot attach shadow method. So that is going to create a encapsulation for your custom element. And you can also define the templates inside your HTML, and these templates can be used inside your custom elements. You can also define the slot where you want to point a particular segment of your template. And after you define your custom elements, you can use that custom element like any other element of your HTML. Inside your HTML page, you can call that custom element with the name that you have given as the first argument of the custom elements dot define method. So this will render this custom element when you load the web application, and the template will appear inside your client or consumer application. The custom elements is helping us to create a reusable code. For that, we have to create a class that is extending the HTML element. As you can see, we need to create a JavaScript class that extend the HTML element. Then you can define the functionalities inside the class. And finally, you need to define the custom element with a name. So use the custom elements dot define method specify the name of the custom element that you want to use, and the name of the class that you have defined. Then you can use the custom element like any other HTML tag inside your HTML page. So as you can see here, we have the autonomous button, yeah, that is defined as a custom element. So when you define the custom element, it render the class and generates the HTML code inside your browser DOM. As you can see, we have a very simple HTML element, the simple class that is extending the HTML element, and we have defined a simple logic inside the connected callback reaction, which is a lifecycle hook method for components. So the inner HTML of the component is defined with a simple paragraph, a welcome message. So when we render this custom element inside the browser, you can see it generates the output within this body. But here is no encapsulation applied for this custom element. So the custom elements contents are simply merged with the browser DOM elements. But we can use a shadow DOM that is providing encapsulation for your custom element. So you can simply attach the styles and scripts and other functionalities for your custom elements, which does not creates any collision with the other script and styles defined inside the application. To create a simple shadow DOM, you can use the attach shadow method, and you can also specify the mode value as open or closed. Whenever we use the closed state, the shadow DOM is not accessible outside the constructor or outside the component, so you cannot access the shadow root using the custom element dot shadow root method. So if you use the custom element dot shadow root, it will be simply returning null. So if you want to make changes inside your custom element, then you have to make your shadow DOM mode as open. And as you can see in the actual DOM, we can insert the shadow root. So in the picture, you can see where we are creating a shadow root and attaching some child elements inside it, which is then plugged into the actual document, that is the actual DOM that is rendering inside the browser. So here is an example for creating a shadow DOM. So when we define the custom element, we can create the shadow DOM using the attach shadow method. So this dot attach shadow with mode is equal to open is going to create a shadow DOM, and then you can define your other elements. Maybe suppose if you want to create a template, or you want to define some paragraphs or list or tables, and then you can attach this child elements to the shadow root or shadow DOM. So when you render this custom component, as you can see inside the browser's console, it is going to create a shadow root which is going to encapsulate the contents of your custom element. The templates are simply used for creating some reusable HTML fragments. So inside your HTML page, you can define a template tag that is containing some HTML elements, which can then accessed from your custom element, and maybe you can add some dynamic contents inside it. So this template is not going to render when you load the page. So you have to explicitly activate this template using this web components. Means from the web component you are going to read the template and then add some dynamic contents inside it and then render this template. Then only the output of the template will be displayed inside the browser. So you can place the templates anywhere inside your HTML page. Maybe you can put inside the head section or body or somewhere else. So here you can see we can define the templates with an ID, and you can see inside the template we have an image and div. So when we define the custom elements using this query selector, we can access the template and then access the elements we defined inside the template individually and make changes into that. So you can see we are accessing the template by its ID and then accessing the image and changing the image source with logo.png, and then we are rendering this template in and appending it as a child inside the custom element inside the document. Similarly, we can also use the ES module for loading the scripts, that whenever we create a custom element inside a JavaScript file, it needs to be defined as a module. So when we include the custom elements JavaScript inside the application, we can define the type as module so that it loads as an ES module, and then you can simply define or simply call the custom elements within your HTML page. When you define the custom elements or web components, you can also define some lifecycle hook methods inside the component class. So, for defining the code logic, you can use the constructor or these lifecycle hook methods. So, the constructor is typically executed when the component is created or upgraded. When the connected callback is a lifecycle hook method, or it's, we can say it's reaction that is executed every time when you insert this component inside the browser DOM, which means when the component is loaded inside the browser DOM, it executes the connected callback. The disconnected callback is executed when the element is removed from the browser DOM. So you can perform some kind of cleanup actions inside this callback. And we also have an attribute changed callback, which gets executed whenever the attributes of this custom component or web component is changed. So, but this is going to execute only for those attributes which are listed under the observed attributes property. So observed attributes, you can define it as a static property that is going to list the names of the properties that you want to observe. So whenever some changes happens to those property values, it execute this attribute changed callback. And we also have adopted callback, which is going to execute whenever the element is moved into a new document. Means some other component is going to call the document.adopt node and then call this element. So when it's moving this element from one component to another component or from one element to another element, at that time it is going to execute the adopted callback. Now we can start a simple demo of web components. So let's see how we can create web components using simple JavaScript. For that, I'm going creating a folder in desktop. Let's give a name sample web component, and let's open this folder in VS Code. And now we can create a simple JavaScript file, I can give simple component.js. Inside this JS file, inside this JavaScript file, we need to create a component class. So simply we can create a new class simple, which extends the HTML element. Now, now inside this component, we can create the connected callback reaction, connected callback. This connected callback, we can specify the components HTML content, what you need to display inside this component that we can define. So this dot inner HTML equal to, simply I can give a paragraph and say welcome to web components. Then close this paragraph. So we have done with the class creation. This is a very simple class. Now we need to define this custom element, that we need to register this custom element. For that we can use the custom elements dot define method. Then we can specify the name of the element, means what element or what tag you need to use for calling this custom element. So let's give simple tag and then give the class name as the second argument. Simple. So we have done with the component registration. To use this component, we need to create a client application. For that, let's create an index HTML page. Inside this component HTML page, I'm going to import the JavaScript file. So script src equal to the simple component.js. Now to use this component, I can simply call the simple tag element. So I have opened and closed the simple tag. Now we can run this page using a web server. So I have installed the live server extension inside my VS Code, so I can run this page using this live server. So now we can see the component is rendered and we can see the output inside this browser. If you go to the console, we'll be able to see the DOM elements. Here inside this body, it is rendering this simple tag. The simple tag is rendering a paragraph inside this browser. Now we can update the same application or web component with the help of shadow DOM. For that, I can use the constructor instead of this connected callback. So I'm defining the constructor. Inside the constructor, as the first line, we have to call the super, and then we need to define the shadow DOM. So let's shadow root equal to this dot attach shadow, and then we can specify the mode as open. Now we can define a template. So for that, let template equal to document dot create element and then specify template. So this is going to create a template element. Now we can specify the inner HTML of the template. So template dot inner HTML equal to the same paragraph we can attach here as well. Welcome to web components. Now this template needs to be rendered inside this shadow DOM. So for that, I can say shadow root dot uh, append child. Inside this, I can say template dot content dot clone node with true. Now we are ready with this component with the shadow DOM. It's going to give the same output in the browser, but now this time it's going to encapsulate the components contents within a shadow DOM. So now we have defined the custom element using the same simple tag uh, custom element, and then inside the HTML we are going to use the same custom element to call the web component. Now let's go and run this page. Inside this browser we can now see the same output, but this time when you go to the browser console and expand the DOM, you can see inside the simple tag it is creating a shadow root. This is the shadow DOM created within this simple tag, and inside the shadow DOM you can see the paragraph is added as a template for this web component. Now we can see how we can define the templates inside the HTML page and then add some dynamic contents with the help of that templates. For that, inside the HTML, I'm going to define a template in the head section. So let's go and define a template tag, give an ID for the template. So I'm just giving my template. Inside the template, I'm defining an H2 element, but I'm not defining the inner content of this H2 element. And below, I am defining an image. The source of the image I'm not defining, which I can add dynamically. The alternate text also I'm not defining at this point of time. So this is my template that I have defined. Now I need to read this template and then make some changes to the contents of the template and then render this template with the help of a shadow DOM. So for that, I'm just going to make some changes in this code. So I'm just removing this code, and here I can now read the template. Let's template equal to document dot query selector and then specify hash my template. This will read the template element. Now I need to read I need to set the header of the template. So for that, I can say template dot content dot query selector, and I have an H2 element inside it. So I'm going to set the inner HTML of that H2 element, which I can say welcome to components. Now we have an image element inside the template. To read the image element, I can say let image equal to template dot content dot query selector, then say img. Then we can set the image source equal to, I need to specify the path of an image here. So I don't have any image at this point of time inside this application folder. So I'm going to create a new folder called images, and then I have an image available in desktop which I'm going to place inside this images folder. Now you can see I have this logo.jpeg file exist. So I can set images slash logo.jpeg, and also I can set the alternate text for the image, website logo. So I have defined the inner content for the h2 element as well as the uh, image source and alternate text is set. Now, as we can see, we are appending the template contents to the shadow DOM and then defining this simple tag element. So there is no change in the remaining codes. Inside the HTML, we are having this template in the head section, and we are simply calling this custom element here. Let's run this code here. We can see the heading as well as the logo is displayed. Now if you go to the inspect element section, you can see the simple tag is creating a shadow DOM. Inside this shadow, we can see the h2 element is rendered with the message that we have passed, and also you can see the image is rendered with the logo and alternate text. Now let's understand how the shadow DOM help us to avoid the code conflict. So let's see. I'm going to add one h1 element inside this page body. So I can simply say web components by Sonu Satyadas. So you can see when I render this page, you can see this is the h1 element and it is displayed in black color, and this h2 element as well as the image is displayed with the help of a custom element, that is the simple tag. Now I'm going to apply some style for my page body. For that I'm going to define a style in the head section. So style, and then define a class which is my style, and say background color is light yellow, and the text color I can say dark green. So I can apply this my style to the body. So I can say class equal to my style. Now when I run this, we can see the entire page content including the custom elements text is also using the style defined inside my head section. So the style defined in the head section is applied to the elements which is defined inside the body as well as the elements defined as part of the shadow DOM. But now I want to apply a style only to certain elements or only to the elements of my shadow DOM or the custom element. So what I can do, I can define the style inside this template itself, and I can use the same style in the same class name inside this. So I can specify a different different color. So instead of light yellow, I can give a different back color, something like aqua, and the text color I can say red. Now this my style is defined twice inside this page. One is defined inside the head section and the other one is defined inside the template. So now the one which is defined inside the template, I want to apply to the h2 element. So let's go and call this my style class for the h2 element. Now we can see we have already defined the style inside this uh, head section, and we also redefined the style inside this template. So the shadow DOM is going to use the style defined inside the template only, because it is going to encapsulate this elements and the style together. So it is isolating the contents for the web components. So now let's run this page. We can see the dark gray color is applied to the text defined outside the component, but the red color is applied to the text defined as part of the shadow DOM. And if you go to the browser uh, element, you can see here we have the simple tag. When you expand the shadow DOM, you can see the style defined inside this shadow DOM. The same style you can also see inside the head section. The style, my style, is defined as part of the head section as well as the part of the shadow DOM. But the h2 element is applying the style defined inside the template. So because it's giving an isolation for this particular DOM element. Now we can see how we can pass parameters to the custom web components using the attributes. For that, I'm just removing the existing code from the constructor and then declaring two parameters. One is color and setting the default value as black, and another is position and setting its value as left. Then I can create two properties for color and position. This is the color property. It returns the color variable value. Also, I can create a position property that is used for returning this position attribute value. Then I can attach the shadow dot to this component. This dot attach shadow, specify the mode as open. Now, whenever we pass the attributes to the color and position parameters or attributes, these values need to be assigned to this color and position variables of this component. So for that, we need to use the method attribute changed callback. This method is taking three parameters. One is attribute name, second is old value, and the third one is new value. So for every attribute value change, this method needs to execute. For that, we have defined this callback method. So we will be checking whether this old value and the new value is different. If the old value is not equal to new value, then I need to assign this value to the attribute. So since my attribute name, that means the uh, parameter name which is declared inside the constructor, and the attribute name which I'm using for passing the value is same, I can use this syntax to assign the values. This dot get attribute and then attribute name. So whenever we assign the value to the attributes, it will get assigned to this color and position parameters or position variables. Now, if you go back to the HTML page, I'm just removing this complete style and the templates which we have used in the previous demo. And here for the simple tag, I'm going to pass color equal to, maybe I can say blue, and position equal to maybe center. So when I pass the values to the simple tag using this, means you can see the color attribute value and the position attribute values are passed to the simple tag. And when we pass these values, it needs to execute this attribute changed callback. But this callback method will get executed only if you list the uh, attribute names using a static method. So I'll define the static property, or you can define it as a method also, observed attribute. So I can return the list of this observed attributes. One is color and the other one is position. So these are the two attributes that I am using inside my custom element. Whenever the values for color and the position is passed, it needs to execute this attribute changed callback. Sorry, it needs to be defined as a static property, so you need to use the get method uh, with the static keyword. So static get observed attribute, which returns this attributes list. So now this will execute the attribute changed callback, and this new values will be assigned to the variables. Now inside this connected callback, I can define the shadow DOM content. For that, what I'm going to do inside this HTML, inside this uh, template, so I'm going to define a template first. Template with ID equal to tmpl, and inside this I'm going to use an h2 element. For this h2 element, I can specify the content as web component demo. So this is my h2 element. So this template I need to display inside the shadow DOM. So for that, first I'm going to read this template content. Let's template equal to this, sorry, document dot get element by ID. So it's better to use the query selector, and I can use hash tmpl. Then we'll read the content of this template, that is the h2 element. So let heading equal to template dot content dot query selector. Then I can say h2. So this is going to read the h2 element, and then I can set the style for heading dot style dot color equal to this dot color property value, and heading dot style dot position equal to this dot position. And then we can attach this template to the shadow DOM. So this dot shadow root dot append child. Then we can say template dot content dot clone node, and then say true. So we are uh, applying the color and position style to the heading using the property values, and then attaching the template content to the shadow DOM. Let's run this HTML application. Let's check the console. A template dot text content dot query select. And we this is automatically filled the value. So let's template dot content dot query select. Yes, we can see this color is applied, and what is this position we have applied. A position value is not applied correctly. This is position. So this is the attribute that needs to be used here, and that is applied to this heading dot style dot position. So I think it should come. Okay, let's check with the different style, right? Okay, there is some error. Okay, the attribute name for setting the position is text align, not the position. So that's error. So now we can refresh. Yes, we can see the content is aligned to the right. Now if I go back and change it to center and changing the color to red, you will be able to see the red text is displaying on the center of this page. Thank you for watching the video. Subscribe my channel. Thanks.